Are you really?
All right. Are we ready? Should we get this party started?
Yeah, 5 o'clock.
Okay. Let's begin with the call to order. Let me do a roll call. Yes, please. Okay. Johnson. I'm here. Moen.
Here.
Sharon.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Vidovich. So should be jumping on later. Okay. The Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, let's begin things with our board's purpose. The board will govern lawfully with an emphasis on outward vision rather than an internal preoccupation, diversity in viewpoints and sufficient understanding of issues, strategic leadership more than administrative detail, clear distinction of board and chief executive roles, collective rather than individual decisions, future rather than past or present, and proactivity rather than reactivity. Okay. With the agenda, I noticed you'd mentioned something about last month we had to add Lynn Reeves. Yes, resignation. We have to add that to the agenda, or is that something we can alter when we go to approve the?
So we can leave it as it is because it's in the personnel as an update.
Okay. So other than that, are there any changes to the agenda tonight? Can someone make a motion?
Move approval of the agenda. Second.
Johnson. Aye. Moen.
Aye.
Sharon.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
All right. Showcasing schools. Manitou Springs Middle School. Do you want to introduce?
Sure. I'd love to introduce Principal Dustin Katie, Aria Bartlett, and also Corey Irvin. They're going to be presenting the great things happening at Manitou Springs Middle School. Okay.
Well, this is exciting. This is the most people we've ever had at a board meeting since I've been here. So you guys heard we were presenting. And also, I just was told that I look like Mr. Rogers. So I'm just processing that comment. We are very excited to talk about the middle school and the exciting things that we're doing this year. And I'm so fortunate to have my colleagues, Aria Bartlett, assistant principal, and Corey Irvin, 6th grade math teacher, to help me out. They're amazing and really happy they're here.
No, it works. It just
Okay. Great. So wanted to start off with a real quick story. This is my 2nd year as principal, and I'm just so excited to be a part of this district, and I'm learning new traditions and new experiences even this year. For example, just last week we had a middle school play. And the tradition at Manitou Springs Middle School is we walk the entire school down to Manitou Elementary and we watch the play as students, and then we walk the whole school back. And so I had some anxiety about that, just that's a lot of moving pieces. But it ended up being just a wonderful experience. Our students did an amazing job, not only the students in the play, but our students walking down there, being a respectful audience. And that's just the Manitou way. So I just was so happy that I could experience that. And then on Saturday, I was able to watch the performance and just relax. And I got to go backstage and see the collaboration with the students. And I'm just really proud of the arts and our performing arts. And I think what struck me is we have some middle school students who in class, they're very quiet. And I wouldn't have pictured them on a stage just being so proud and empowered. And so that to me just was something that was really special. So wanted to start that. And I think the play connects to all of our core values that we think about every day: relationships, deep learning, and opportunity. And our presentation today, it's going to really be focused on 3 things. Our action plan that we developed a year ago. All schools developed one, but we as the middle school focused on 3 leverage points. Number 1 was improving our instruction in all classrooms, talking about our multi-tiered systems of support and building systems for that. And then just building up leadership density with staff and also our students. So that's what our presentation will be focused on today.
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, again, I teach 6th grade math, Corey Urban, and I wanted to speak to the initiative that we've been working on, at least for this entire school year, even a little bit into last school year. It says 7 steps to a language-rich classroom, and that really is pretty self-explanatory. I mean, it is 7 strategies, steps, if you will, to deepening the language usage that your students that they're using in your class, right? And so we started with 3 of them last year, which I think actually helped me a lot personally because it kind of let me dip my toe in, practice a little bit. But then this year, there was a pretty significant investment in bringing Nancy Motley, who actually wrote the book, out and to do several trainings with us. And I think what I appreciate most and am most proud about is that it wasn't just a one-off professional development, right? So we had something at the beginning of the year, we practiced, we had something again a month and a half later. So she ended up coming to our school a total of four times, couple of which were rotations of her getting to go through classrooms and observe and provide feedback. And another one is staff getting to go into classrooms and observe and provide feedback. So just in terms of a professional development, I think that, it's pretty incredible that we've been able to not just have it be a one-off and move on. In terms of the way it's kind of transformed my classroom, so you have 100% of students engaged in speaking incomplete sentences about math every single day. So a content that might not typically be word heavy, if you will. They're writing, they're speaking incomplete sentences, and they're thinking critically with the people at their table, and they're brainstorming, just engaged in a way that I've never seen before. So not only is it awesome for our school, but it was just pretty transformative for me in general. So this is kind of the schedule that we kept when we did our instructional rounds. So each teacher had the opportunity with a group of, 3 or 4 others to go in and do 10-minute rotations in 3 or 4 different rooms. And when you exited, it really was just a heavily positive experience. So it wasn't necessarily, we weren't talking about room for growth necessarily. We weren't talking about teacher effectiveness, but just like what an opportunity as a teacher to go see another teacher and talk about all the great things that they were doing that connected to the 7 steps work. And it's just, that's powerful and very educational.
It's me.
Sure. Okay.
Thank you. So our second leverage point is multi-tiered systems for support. And this is thank you to the Late Start Wednesdays. We have time for this collaboration. And really, when I think about MTSS, or when we think about MTSS, it's making sure no kid falls through the cracks. So this year, because we have this time on Late Start Wednesdays, we can have all of our exploratory teachers, our paraprofessionals, our mental health team, all get together and really focus in on a couple of students. really problem solve as a team, how we can make those students be successful. So maybe it is the performing arts and theater, maybe it's a classroom-based intervention. So just at a high level, that's been a really powerful opportunity for our staff this year to have that time. And we're seeing the direct impact on students. One thing is that we're really working on is communication with families. So after we've discussed a student and what could possibly help, definitely bringing in the parents so that it's a team approach, and also the student. That's been kind of a change this year that we've really worked on. So here you see a picture of the middle school staff, and this is all of us at the beginning of the year. We're looking at some reading and math data from iReady, and we had this little chart. And so this, I'll just explain this real briefly, but every teacher had this, and you just list what period you're teaching. So period 1, and then you can see which of my students are at or above grade level in reading. So teachers would write the kids' names in there, all the way down to the students who are struggling. So that as a teacher, I now have every period I can see, okay, is this class have more kids on grade level and above? And I'll change my instruction if that's the case, or does this class have a lot of students that struggle with reading? And I might need to do some things differently. So this is just an example of something we do in MTSS, just to share an example. I haven't figured out how to do this. Okay.
Good evening. I'm going to talk to you about our leverage point number 3, building leadership density. First of all, I'd like to talk about our building leadership team. It has seen several transformations. Last year, it was really about the day-to-day stuff. How do you survive just teaching in a pandemic today? This year, at the beginning of the year, we focused on a more managerial point of view. And then the second semester, we've kind of moved into looking at the bigger picture of leadership. What does it mean to have leadership density? And which brings us to our adaptive schools training that really has set the scaffold for the work that we're going to be doing next. We really want to have productive meetings, not only as a BLT, which tend to be your more involved teachers, but we want it to go across the school. We want every meeting PLC to be run effectively. We want to build consensus, and we want to have cognitive conflict. We don't want to be a complacent group. We want to strive and push and grow for the benefit of our students, our staff, our community members, and beyond. Our leadership density has funneled down to our students. This year, we are proud to announce that the middle school has their very own Stuco. They are working on planning spirit weeks, a school dance, and some other things. They greet our visitors that we have. We hosted the superintendents. And so a part of our leadership group met all the superintendents at the door and, high-fived them, welcomed them, brought them in. We have ambassadors. They give tours. We brought over, if you'll click to the next picture, this is the end of our incoming 6th grade visit. And we had some student ambassadors who led them on tours and a scavenger hunt for the building. So leadership is school-wide, all the way down to the students.
Yeah.
Awesome. So this is just our updated demographics and enrollment, which you guys can just read here, kind of our special education, our students on a 504, our gifted population, our 25% free reduced lunch this year. You can see we have 144 boys and 138 girls, and our total enrollment is 282. So that's something that we are focusing on increasing. We know that that's an under-enrolled number that we'd like to increase. So, if you look here, we have 76 graders, 100 7th graders, and 112 8th graders. So again, enrollment is something that we're discussing, and we actually have an opportunity this week, an open house that we're collaborating with the high school on. If you want to go to the next slide, please, somebody, thank you. So we've really been promoting this event to try and get the word out in the community about all the great things that we're doing at our school. We've been really focused on just telling our story, whether that's on social media or just a different community engagement opportunities. So definitely a goal that we're working towards, because we do have a lot of great things that we want other students to be able to experience.
Okay. So I just, for one, am incredibly proud of the positive culture that exists at the middle school. I don't necessarily know how to say that any differently. I think that our students overall love being there. And I think that our teachers overall love being there. I think it's just a really, really positive school environment. Speaking as someone who's been in many school environments. And you know, that I'm not exactly sure what to attribute it to. Obviously, our staff are fun. They're building relationships with kids, right? They're having cool conversations. Our kids are fun, right? They enjoy school. They enjoy learning. We're giving them the opportunities they need. And so they just continue to enjoy being there. We also, I mean, we have all sorts of cool things that we do, right? So we have recently picked back up on our honor roll. So that's been kind of fun. This is Mr. Johnson getting duct taped to the wall, you know, root beer floats and hurrahs. And then we have, you know, we danced the Cupid Shuffle. We dance a lot at the middle school, actually, I think. I just think that there's all sorts of these really fun, just little things. We go to the play, right? That we have that build our positive school culture for students and staff. And it's those opportunities to kind of build relationships outside of just that typical classroom environment, which actually is kind of what enrichment's about too. So we're piloting a new program that we developed this year called Enrichment, and it's very much what it sounds like. It's an opportunity for students to enrich themselves in something that wouldn't be considered a normal school content area. Because of the way we decided to do our schedule with the late start Wednesdays and Thursdays, we have a chunk of time at the end of each Thursday where each staff member has picked something that they're passionate about, and we put it on a Google form and we let kids fill out a survey, and we kind of place them accordingly. So creative writing, Lego building, that's when our ambassadors, the leadership group meets, our STUCO meets. It's also an opportunity for study hall for those of the students who have some missing assignments. It's just stuff that kids would not have the opportunity to participate in a school setting in a typical day. So that's been really great, giving them a little bit of choice. And then advisory is, you know, that's really where we're choosing. So that's on a Wednesday afternoon. And that's where we're choosing to implement our social emotional learning curriculum, second step. And that's really what that is dedicated to, is just that half an hour with that group every time we have a late start Wednesday.
Okay, so I get to talk to you about our community partners, and we are super excited. This is our third year with Peak Ed. We currently have about 15 students who are part of that at the middle school. And really Peak Ed, what they're trying to do is to provide supports for students for their social emotional wellness, for college and career readiness, and just provide mentorship and some support for those students to give them the option to have whatever it is that they choose to do post-secondary school. This year, we were able to work with Children's Hospital, and our sixth graders received a one-on-one mentor, specifically building resilience between each other and learning how to set goals. We also partner with Tessa for our 7th and 8th graders, learning how to set boundaries, to build positive relationships, I lost my, my train of thought. Safe relationships, safe boundaries, what's okay, when can I be touched, when can I not be touched, that kind of stuff. We are having our first ever STEAM night. We are looking forward to that. It'll be here in April. We're super excited to reach out to more partners, community partners. We're gonna have students showcase some of the work they've been doing in those classes, as well as get a glimpse of possible career choices that they maybe never imagined.
All right, we saved the data for the end, so hang in there, everybody. Just really wanted to touch on our reading and math data. We use iReady to help our students and involve parents so that they know what they need to do. So Really just, this is a graph, but I just wanted to highlight, this is our reading from, this means beginning of year, BOY, to middle of year, MOY. So what you want to see is this red means students who are two or more years below grade level. Yellow is 1 year below grade level, and green is at or above grade level. So from the beginning of the year, you can see we had a significant amount of students below grade level. We want to see that red decreasing as the year goes on. And we were really proud of our growth in reading. Just a couple of highlights. We had 74 students reading at or above grade level at the middle of the year, which was up from 20 students. 17 students who were reading 2 grade levels below moved up a level, and 7 students who were reading 3 grade levels below moved up a level. So this is just a tribute to our teachers and our students for their hard work. And we have a lot of work to do still, but we are proud as a staff of just that growth. And this is just another graph about reading. And I just wanted to highlight just something on this graph. This means that right here, you can see that 52% of our kids have already made their typical growth for an entire year. So half of our students already made their typical growth goal, which is really exciting, by their mid-year benchmark. And down here, I just wanted to highlight, you can see the different breakdown of kind of levels of students. What we're seeing is our high readers are actually making a significant amount of growth. 59% of them have already met their goal. And that's actually hard to do. Your higher readers, it's hard to move them because they're already reading at such a high level. So we were really excited to see that. And then our lowest readers also, 59% of them have already met their goal for the whole year. So again, that's just a tribute to our teachers and our students. Keep looking at Cap, but you got the clickers. And then this is our math data as well. Again, we saw from the beginning of the year to the middle of the year, you can see just visually the red and yellow has decreased. We have 30 students mid or above, up from 21. We have 56 students at early on grade level, up from 36. 10 students moved up a level from 2 grade levels below, and 16 students moved up a level from 3 or more grade levels below. So we know every kid matters, and we want 100% of our kids to be growing and moving. But this is just some exciting growth data to share. And as far as the math data goes, if this is more what I would typically expect, you can see the students who are the lowest below grade level are making the most growth, whereas our at or above grade level math students aren't growing as fast. So that's just something the math team is diving into. But overall, I think you contributed to a lot of different things, the growth that we're making, kind of some of the stuff we've touched on today. And then the last 3 slides are just our CMAS, which was last year. And we know that was just a point in time during a pandemic, but our 6th grade took math, our 7th grade took reading, and our 8th grade took ELA. We know it was a really impacted school year because of the COVID pandemic. And I just wanted to mention that something else we're doing as a district is doing a math curriculum adoption process, looking at a new math resource potentially, as well as the other school initiatives that we're doing. Because we know, just like the rest of the state, that we still have students who are struggling in math. So if you want to go to the next one. This is the language arts, yep. Yep, and so our 8th grade cohort, as you can see, struggled. Only 1% of them exceeded the state standards, but statewide it was 5%. So that was kind of in line with the state. So again, there's lots of data, but we're just proud of the work we're doing. And I think the last slide is just opening it up to questions.
Questions? I'm a fan of, I like all kids, but I'm a fan of middle school kids. In turn, I'm a fan of the folks that want to help them learn and grow. So thank you so much.
So do you think the new math curriculum will help with move some of the scores closer to the kind of state average?
Certainly, that's one piece of the puzzle. I think that alignment is going to be really key.
Corey, could you speak to some of the current resource gaps that might be addressed through a new resource and the professional development that comes along with the new resource?
And so I guess if I had to identify a gap in our current curriculum beyond, typical, it's a little out of date culturally. There's cultural gaps and things there too, but it does lack discovery. So I'm really excited. I'm hoping to move towards something where, kids are connecting all sorts of pieces together, not necessarily learning to do, right? But learning to conceptualize, learning to understand. I know that we always talk about that and that's always the goal, but it's very much set up to be a little plug and chug right now, right? Here's 20 problems, go work on them. And I guess I'm personally hoping that, you know, can we take the 54 minutes that we have in class every single day with these kids and make it the most engaging 54 minutes possible so that when they leave, they don't necessarily have to do a ton of math at home. That's just not the expectation that we can have for our students necessarily anymore with everything that they're involved in. And so how can I make the 54 minutes the best 54 minutes it can possibly be? And I feel like a new curriculum would certainly support that mentality.
Great, thank you.
One of the things we're committed to is also providing professional development along the way. So oftentimes you'll see, here's a resource, now go learn and do, but we want to make sure that cycle of professional development is ongoing, not just here's the tool, here's the work.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, recognition. So we're just pulling it. February is transportation recognition. I think we're just getting it in on
by the birthday. I think if it's okay, Susie and I just love to speak to the leadership of John and everyone on the team. What you all have done for our community for the hardest time education has seen is just remarkable. And today we actually were able to send an email that we don't need to wear the mask, or they're not required on buses anymore. And these folks have been wearing a mask every single day for years now. So we just can't say enough that they've literally kept our children in school. In some districts where there is not transportation, we have committed to continuing transportation, also to activities across the state, cold nights, and they are just remarkable. And the stress that is involved in driving a bus is pretty tremendous. So thank you. And
I just echo all of that. I think that this has been a difficult year for many reasons for the transportation department the past 2 years. But this group of people, we're just so lucky to have all of them, and they are so flexible and have done so much for us that we are very, very lucky to have them all.
For a speech from
I know. Well, I have a, what time do you get up in the morning? That's my question.
my house is and I'm one of the last. We all take a picture. We're going to get a picture.
No, big guy.
I'm gonna take a picture with it.
I'll take a picture. Yeah, let's do all of us.
I know.
Backup photo. Now the pressure's on. I will never get that many people.
Jack's not front though.
Hey, if I sit in front of Jack.
No, just it all done. That's even better.
This way. 1, 2, 3. And that's pretty good. I got it.
Okay, while you're up here, I will distribute. Let's see, Jill Carcel. There you go. Thank you so much. All right, Ken DeMoro. Okay. All right. This is John Hardin. Oh, yes. Thank you.
Marathon day.
Kelly Kaler.
I had a cookie.
Todd Kaler. Bonnie Kish. Okay. Carrie Moore. Wetzel. Thank you. And Paul Willie.
Yes, there's cookie.
I'll get it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
White chocolate. White chocolate strawberry. They're amazing. Thank you. I love it, Jillian. They're like.
This works.
Yeah.
That was excellent. I'm glad we pulled that one off.
Yeah.
Any public comments?
No, we had one and she had to back out. So we do not have any public comment.
Right, then I will not torture you all by reading our guidelines for that. Okay, so the consent agenda. Did you all have a chance to check out the consent agenda?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second. Johnson.
Aye.
Bowen.
Aye.
Sharon.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Still no Tina?
So Latina on the call.
I did notice that maybe a typo. Actually,
Share it now.
what's that?
You have to share it now. Yeah.
Evidence of compliance, number 2.
What are you looking at?
Under executive limitation.
On the, sorry. Yeah, executive limitations. Under section evidence of compliance. Number 2, the director of student success, in addition to his or her current responsibilities, will also assume the sum of the responsibilities.
Oh,
It's a
gotcha.
different sum.
Okay. Thank you.
It's like a math sum than an English sum.
Some of this, some of that.
I think maybe it's the typo is maybe it should say, we'll also assume some of the responsibilities. I think that was my.
Either one works.
Okay, all right. Is that
Yeah, you can
remove the.
well, it would be 2 different meanings. So do they assume sum total, or do they just assume sum of them?
Let's just assume some of the responsibilities.
So then we just fix it up.
Yep, I'll fix that. Thanks, big catch. That is a big.
Yeah, a big difference.
Yes. Hey, superintendent's report.
Okay, at this time, Cameron Jones, our Director of Athletics and Activities, will present the annual update around all the wonderful opportunities we provide. Thanks.
Yeah, voice vibrates and doesn't.
Thanks for having me. I have a cough drop in my mouth just because I've been really congested, so hopefully I don't spit it across or choke on it. One of the two, so hopefully those things don't happen. So I'm going to give you my activities update. And as I was listening to Dustin, it kind of hit me that like we've had for our fall seasons, we've had 2 fall seasons since the last time I actually talked to you, just because how crazy COVID was last year and volleyball getting played in the fall, or in the winter. So it's been crazy. But one of the best things about the year so far is we've been very limited in the impact that COVID has had in activities and sports. And it's just been great for our kids. We're going to kick off with middle school activities. This is actually one of our bigger growth things this year. Last year, really one of the most impacted things were activities across middle school and high school, but especially middle school. Just super impacted with what we could offer kids. Most things were canceled, as you know, band concerts, things didn't happen. And what we could do, they were kind of virtual.
things like that. So we've been having concerts and performances, and so it's just been, it's been good. Robotics, we state qualified, and they finished 12th just last week, so that's pretty cool. Like I said, band and orchestra has been going at it and having concerts, and match wits. Last year we weren't able to do match wits. And well, match wits, you might not know what match wits is. It's Knowledge Bowl. So high school, we call it Knowledge Bowl. Middle school, we call it match wits. And so they took third in their season opener. And then since I actually had to submit the report, I think they took fourth maybe this last weekend. We're actually hosting our first match wits competition in a long time. So this coming up, I think, on the 11th of March. So we're excited about that. Forensics. Forensics took a big hit last year. And so Claudia Huntington, she's done a great job kind of getting momentum and getting kids back involved. She's got a good group when they show up. And so I know they had a third place finisher this last weekend. So that was pretty cool. So yeah, just have some pictures down there. That's our match wits crew right there with their buzzers. And so we had our robotics over there, and that's one of our concerts right around December. Middle school sports. Over here is basically our fall winter. We're in the midst of wrestling season right now. Spring sports start here in a couple weeks. These are participation numbers next to the sport. And so I've been super happy with our numbers. Probably the only one not super happy with our numbers would be our football coach. He'd probably like to have more than 20 kids out for football. Because that's the starting number. I think by the time the season was over, we're like, dipping 16. But he worked wonders with that. The kids got through the season, had a good season. So, but some great turnouts across the board. Volleyball, as usual, with 36 kids out there. Basketball, look at the girls' basketball, 42. And so wrestling, we had a good group of 21. So super happy with that. But really the sports moment of the year, probably across the board, middle school, high school, was that group right there in that picture, who not only won the league meet, which was the first time in the history of the Southern Colorado Athletic League, that's our middle school league. It's the first time anybody's won it besides Monument Academy. And so we took that from them. They were heartbroken. I felt really bad about it. And then they went on the next week and won state. So, I mean, just a super cool thing for the school, for the girls, and Coach Kaiser Green there. Okay, so on to kind of high school activities. Got some pictures down there, what's going on. And I have another slide that has some more activity stuff on it, but robotics is building now. They're actually heading to California here this week. So they're gearing up for that. State, I think, is at the end of March, right around spring break time. So gearing up for that. They're building, they've got the robot. Apparently it does like monkey bars this year. Can't wait to see it. As speech and debate our Gideon is our guy for that. I don't know what we're gonna do without him. He's a senior, but he qualified for state and he's a national qualifier too. So just pretty cool thing. Once again, back band and orchestra, we're going live again. We've been going to these honor festivals like crazy. I do all the hotels and stuff for it. It's like constant. And it's awesome because these are opportunities kids didn't get the last year or two. So just to see them get to go these and David Williams, he's awesome about sending pictures and, the high schools, if you're on the high school staff, or Marcia gets them in the momentum as well. But just celebrating these kids that get to experience these things is just awesome. We have Knowledge Bowl. Knowledge Bowl was something we actually got to do last year, but it was all virtual, no in-person stuff. So this year they've had live interactions with humans, and it's a good thing. So They took 30 at regionals and they're heading to state. So pretty fun there. Performing arts, we're back acting and performing. And so I have another slide that kind of celebrates that coming up, so I won't give it away. But we have our musical, so look out for that and try to come catch the musical in April. So here's some activity accomplishments. Just, I mean, there's so many, we could probably have 2 or 3 slides on this, but here's Gideon up on stage after he, I think that was state there, but we have Anton down here. I mean, Anton's on every honor competition, you name it, he's there. We hosted the Tri-Peak Slant League band competition. And if you have, we've hosted for years, but last year it went virtual, but this year it was back in person. It was actually one of the first, what I heard was one of the first concerts around that it was actually in person. And just talking to the kids and the parents, they were so grateful that we were able to host that. Just because it'd been so long since they got to see their kids on stage, the kids got to perform in front of an audience. It was awesome, and as you can see, we did really well at the competition. There's Ella, who's also absolutely incredible. She was at the Pikes Peak Honor Orchestra, and she had first chair overall, which is absolutely amazing. And this is something really cool that just happened. Our Manitou Performing Arts Club were one-act champions, which is a competition. And so they went there and they went up against 4A and 5A schools with probably triple, quadruple the number of kids, you know, and programs and resources, you name it. And they came out of their champs. So super cool moment for them. Something cool that happened just a couple weeks ago, our student leadership hosted a charity week. And they did all kinds of things all week long to try to raise money for the Boulder Valley School District that was impacted by the Marshall fires. And so I think they did pretty well. I mean, they raised $1,500 in a few days. So really proud of them. That's a picture of a bunch of old people that played basketball. We were like the ball team. But the kids scheduled the game. We played Woodland Park up there. They came down, so it was a good day. So here's high school sports. So we had some. So over here, once again, we have our participation numbers, which are really, really good. Volleyball this year, we were able to fill 3 teams, which is always a good thing. We've struggled with that at times. Cross country had a big turnout, 19 kids. We had a really cool moment, and it's the year of cross country, I think, because that group right there, and we're missing a few guys there. The first team qualify since 1996 for state. So it's really hard to qualify for state and cross country, extremely hard. And we had a great group there. And Henry placed 3rd in individual at state. So just really cool moments there. Football, decent turnout this year. Obviously a football coach would write more than 30 kids, you know, especially we're playing mostly teams that have 50, 60 kids. But they did well with what they had. Boys golf, Davis was a state qualifier, which was really cool. And then boys soccer, we had 3 all-conference selections. Winter, we're still in winter. So boys basketball, girls basketball, we're right at the tail end, but both actually qualified for the state tournament at districts this last weekend. So Friday, we'll be playing some more basketball. And so just in, where girls will be at Lutheran at 5:30 start, and boys will be at Res Christian to play Middle Park at 7:30. We Googled it earlier. It's about an hour and 15. So watching the girls and then getting the boys might be tough, but you could probably catch the second half if you want to try it. Wrestling. So we had some cool things in wrestling. The biggest cool thing is right there. That's Hannah. I don't know if you ever met her, but Not only was she the first ever female TPL, so our Tri-Peaks League champion, first ever, she also was a state placer, placed fourth. So just a really cool moment for Hannah and the wrestling program there. Swim dive down here, we had 8 state qualifiers out of a team of 15. So not too bad. So our number's a little low on swim and dive, but you know, we were pretty good. And then cheer, we had 14 girls and we got to compete in the state spirit championship. These, I'm not going to go through all these. These are just some of our kind of athletic accomplishments, you know, everything from all states. These are how many kids for each one were selected. We had boys league champs. That's how we placed in leagues. So some really cool accomplishments there just so far this year. Okay, so one thing we do is we do sport participation surveys for kids, for the athletes. And so after they participate in a sport, we've done it different over the years. This year, I actually physically bring them down to the Commons or the Media Center and make them do it. We tried in the past just emailing surveys to kids. So participation is not as good when you email things to people, as you know. So when you physically make them, you get better turnouts. What do you know? And so this is, you know, it's, I don't know, there's probably 20 questions for kids to fill out. But for me, this is one of the most important. So how would you describe your overall experience this season, right? One of the most important thing. And as you can see, we have great, good, so-so, and then bads at the flat. So just the numbers, I'll read you the numbers because sometimes numbers make more sense than the bars. Middle school, we had right over here, we had 162 kids in the fall do the survey, which was awesome. That's like the majority. And so out of 162, 116 said they had a great experience. 37, they had a good experience. We had 8 kids say so-so, and we had 1 solo kid said bad. So sad. Okay, so we'll work on that one kid. But high school, we had 236 kids do the surveys. Out of that, 161 said they had a great experience. 63 said they had a good experience. And 12 said they had a so-so experience, and 0 said they had a bad. So, you know, I'm super pumped, happy about that. You know, that we're offering, you know, these programs and kids are having a good time and enjoying themselves. Safe sport. So I just wanted to briefly kind of introduce this to you. Safe sport, it's from the U.S. Center of Safe Sport. It was established, so I wrote this down because it's kind of weird. Established under the Protecting Young Victims from Sexual Abuse and Safe Sport Authorization Act of 2017. It's under the umbrella of the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic governing bodies, and it's federally funded by a grant. And so it's something we're implementing into our athletics 612. And so starting next year, I mean, we're starting this year, but next year, all our coaches and activity sponsors will be certified as sports youth or in safe sports. And so just real quickly, the main components of MAP stands for the Minor Athlete Abuse Prevention Policies. And really, it's not rocket science stuff. It's really just common practices to keep kids safe and coaches safe. And so it talks about one-on-one interactions. Anytime you're interacting one-on-one with a kid, that always needs to be observable and interruptible. It goes through meetings and training sessions, talks about your interactions and things like that. Talks about athletic training, procedures for treatments and those kind of things. It addresses locker rooms and changing areas, electronic communication, and then it's travel and overnight stay. So those are the modules within the safe sport. immediately we've met multiple times with our coaches, and we're talking about one-on-one interactions with kids and diving into that world and going through scenarios, because there's always these scenarios, these one-off scenarios. Well, what if this happens? What if you're the last person and waiting for a parent to pick up the kid, right? And so we're having these conversations as a staff and going through those things. That was the grand finale. I think that's it. Any questions or clarifications I can talk about?
I have a question.
Sure.
I'm wondering, do we track how many students intentionally select Manitou or do not select Manitou based on athletics or after school opportunities?
Specifically, but pretty soon, I think it's going out tomorrow or so, we'll do an intent to return. And if a student's not going to return, it'll say reason why. And sometimes they will say, I want to play this athletic sport here at this school. So we don't have a specific number.
Yeah, it gets a little sticky just because under CHASA guidelines, you can't choose a school for athletic reasons, even though that's always a part of the equation. I mean, I don't think anybody would disagree that it's part of the package, right? But you can't specifically identify, I'm coming here to play sports, just under CHASA guidelines. But
I would be curious, maybe the principals could share about when they do their interviews with families to come to Manitou. I'm certain that some families come for certain programming or opportunity, but we don't capture it specifically quantitatively.
That's a good question, though. I know it's a big deal.
I think athletics are great, no doubt about it. Any luck on finding a new athletic trainer?
Good news. I guess I can announce.
Yeah, we have a new athletic trainer. He is coming from out of state, so he's not going to start until next school year, but he signed his MOU for next school year today. So that will be on your next board agenda.
Excellent.
That's
Perfect timing.
Comes with experience in high school and also at the collegiate level.
Great.
And a CTE teacher.
Yes.
Yeah. He's a what? I'm sorry.
CTE teacher. Also.
Okay. Yeah. Don't stop, John.
Yeah, that's right.
Anything else?
Do we, I guess my question is, do we publicize as far as the school, and when you were saying athletics coming in, but maybe to where we've got kids that are graduating and they're going on to Division I, Division II, whatever, do we, I mean, I think that's a great thing to where you got kids coming in to say, hey, we do have kids that are going out with these kind of experiences.
Yeah, for sure. And that's something we've actually been building over these few years. We do a really cool signing day event that we're making bigger. We'll probably make bigger every single year. But, you know, we have other people that help us with that stuff too. You know, Dan Mormon, you guys familiar with him? He writes for us. He's really good at writing articles about our graduates and things they're doing in college. And so yeah, I mean, that's something we do need to pitch, you know, our successes.
Right.
And how cool, you know, we have a lot of kids that go on to do really good stuff, and making sure people know about it. So that's good. We can do better with that for sure.
We're working with a PR person now, and he's going to start to work running student spotlights that really highlight where a graduate heads off to, and also the same for staff spotlights as well.
Yeah.
And then Colleen's been
I was just going to say the sheer numbers when you talk about 236 kids at the high school were given this survey just after the fall season. Just the sheer numbers, you know, I think if we lost any of our exceptional extracurricular activities, there'd be an impact. We certainly, I mean, I've certainly had questions about our home build, for example, for prospective families. So I think there's a lot that's really unique that helps us with that.
Just want to add to a kudos to Cameron to looking into safe sport. That is something that really would elevate our school district in a way that no other, as we know, high school program, middle school program is doing, even in the county. I don't know about even in the state. But I know our parents are interested in this, making sure that we're doing everything we can. So thanks, Kim, for taking that on and learning as much. I know he and Angie Glass did some work. The other thing, robotics, they are heading off to state. It's exciting. If you ever get a chance and would like to go and see their programming around this machine, and I know that this new challenge, as it said, has to climb some type of monkey bars, and they made the arms too small, but they problem solved and they figured it out, and it's really just quite remarkable.
They're gonna do a little showcase coming up. I think usually the window between California and state, they'll set up a day where they'll come and do a little showcase. So we'll get you the info, and if you guys want to come check it out.
I also think, and I have to commend all the staff that we have. I know how hard they work and how much they do, but I really didn't know how much Cameron did till Friday in between the game. I was sitting there going, what are you doing running back and forth? Well, he's paying refs, he's doing this, he's the treasurer for which is this league or whatever. And so I'm amazed at all the extra things that, you know, these people do that work for us. So I'm totally impressed.
Cameron probably put in 20 hours over the course of 2 weeks this weekend.
It was a busy couple days. It was fun though. On that note, real quick, I should have jumped in when you guys were celebrating the transportation people, but they've been truly amazing making, so, you know, I put that slide up with, you know, all their participation, and with participation comes transportation, right? And so just the amount of the quantity of getting kids everywhere, short-staffed, and really, you know, they stepped up, the coaches have stepped up. A lot of our coaches actually stepped in and transported kids. You know, our swim coach, I mean, she did most of the transporting all through swim season. Our cheer coaches did the same thing. Paul Varner with wrestling did the same thing. So it's really taken a lot of people. You know, Angie Glass is just absolutely amazing, and Brian, and you know, just making these things happen, you know, just takes a lot of people. So I should have turned that in. All right, well, thanks for your time.
Sure. Just we wanted to provide some updates from the last meeting. Thanks for the thumbs up to move forward with that process. I know I see Dan and Garrett and also that they can answer any questions that you might have. When we've been meeting, Susie and I have been getting documents together for this team. The turnaround for the RFP was pretty tight, and I know Dan was very diligent in ensuring that we had a competitive RFP process and that banks had a time to turn that around. So he's on the call if you all have any specific questions. That 4.07 initially talked about 4, but the 07 brings in extra fees that would be associated with this that we've been assuming. And then also Kim has and their team have drafted this authorizing resolution. We don't need to necessarily talk about it. We just wanted you to have an awareness of what you would be approving on March 17th, if in fact we find a bank that has terms that we agree with and that are really feasible for us as a school district moving forward. So just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page before we get to that March 17th meeting. And Kim or Dan or Garrett, if you have anything, please feel free to add, or Susie.
Do you anticipate that this will be a problem that we find a bank? I mean, I feel like the financial market is all over the place right now. I mean,
yeah, Dan can absolutely kind of briefed us on some possibilities and why we wanted to extend it beyond that weekend. And
sure. Sorry, I was muted. I was talking there for a second. And I just did the classic "you're muted" thing there. So, yeah. So we, once we got direction from the board, we took about a few days. It really wasn't too long of a turnaround time to put together an RFP and send it out to potential banks. And immediately I got feedback within a day or two that given at that time was the President's Day holiday, that they just wouldn't be able to turn around. And also, as you just mentioned, given what's going on in the markets, they wouldn't be able to turn around a proposal, they being several of the banks that I RFP'd to. So we did have to extend that to March 3rd, which I think is fine. You know, we have seen rates actually come back down in the last couple of days, believe it or not. They were on a quick upward trajectory since last time I spoke with you, and given what's going on, globally with the Ukraine and other developments, we've seen rates come back down in the last couple days. So we'll see. I mean, there's going to be a Fed meeting in the middle of March that we have expectations of seeing rate hikes then again. We don't know if that's going to be 50 or 25 basis points. So there is a lot financially going on in the markets, and we really hope to make sure we're able to discern, what's going to be the best proposal that we get back from the banks. I think we're going to have various rates and various terms that we're going to have to sift through, and that's why I really we'd like to expedite the process to lock in these rates for sure, but at the same time, I don't want to come to you guys with a blank parameters resolution for approval and then say, okay, here's the rates, and you guys haven't had a chance to look them over. So to be honest, I told Elizabeth this, and hopefully she's okay with me mentioning this, but the March 3rd is when we get the proposals back, and the March 17 is the next date that I can get authorization from you all to proceed, and that would give us the ability to lock that rate. I don't love the time of 2 weeks between March 3rd and the 17th, because that's completely subject to interest rate fluctuations. So let's say I get those proposals back on the 3rd and rates go up 15 basis points between then and the 17th. I'll have to go back to those banks and get revised rates for approval at that 17th meeting. So the only other option would be a special meeting, and I think Elizabeth was concerned that might be too tight of a time frame between the 3rd and the 17th. But that would be the only, ideally, if we could do something after the 3rd and in between the 17th, that way we wouldn't be subject to 14 days of interest rate fluctuations. But I certainly understand the schedule of the boards and everyone else. So if that's an issue, the 17th is just fine, and we can approve the resolution and lock the rate that day.
We also could potentially do that could be a virtual meeting. It wouldn't have to be all of you together. So, I mean, I think that would be our best hope, is we could lock it in at the lowest rate possible, if that would work. So
during the day, then
we just need to post it 24 hours prior to, and we need 3 board members. Of course, 5 would be better.
We'd have all the information before the meeting, so
yes.
It would just be probably a brief discussion about it.
Kind of something that Dan and Susan and I talked about is that we would review and see what comes in at the best term rates and what we could pay off with the bond, and make a recommendation. We could have individual meetings with 2 board members to say, here's our recommendation, so that when we sat down for the special meeting, it would be a yes, ready to go.
And I'll collect all of the proposals and summarize them and put them into a spreadsheet that I'll provide to the district, so you can look that over before you make a recommendation.
Well, I'm seeing a lot of head nods, so I think we're willing to work with you. Let me know more.
And if it came down to it, I mean, we have a CFO that is going to get us the best deal that we can get. I totally have faith in that. If something happened, couldn't, can we go ahead and say, lock it in, and then, we already know, me personally, I've already approved in my concept of going forward, and I trust this individual here is going to be the best financial advisor that the district has. I mean, I'd be happy, but I'll also make myself available.
I can answer that question, and Kim probably can too, but I'm guessing because so the resolution that you're reviewing tonight, in essence, is a parameters resolution that would allow for the CFO or the superintendent to act on, the district's behalf to lock in a rate. And it's full of blanks right now. And again, I didn't really feel entirely comfortable just because I feel like the terms may change and from what we reviewed, whenever that was a few weeks ago, just because what's been going on in the financial markets. But certainly, you could approve that resolution, and then that would give Susie and Elizabeth the ability to move forward. But that's entirely up to you as far as your comfort level in doing so.
Yeah, this is Kim Crawford. That resolution is complete, except for a section called Supplemental Act Parameters. And that's what Dan was referring to. Because as a school board in an act of issuance, which is what a lease purchase financing would be, you can delegate to any member of the board, the superintendent or the chief financial officer, the ability to make final pricing determinations based on parameters. And usually those parameters are higher so that they don't have to go back to the board, higher but realistic. And I think our hesitation tonight was that with Dan's recommendations and the market such as it is, we just didn't want to put really high parameters in there that would lead you to believe that you were going to get a deal that didn't really look like the deal you were going to get.
Yeah. So let me give you for instance, there's a really good chance that there's going to be several banks, actually most banks, that aren't going to be willing to go out 20 years. And they're going to say, we're not interested in, whatever it may be, 3.5%, 4% for 20 years. But what we would like to do is have the rate locked in at, let's say, 2% for 10 years. And then at the end of 10 years, it would be subject to a reset rate. And that would be, whatever the prevailing market is at the time, 10 years from now. Now, the hope would be that you would have, as we discussed, pass a bond issue and have that paid off. Should that not be the case, that would be a risk that in 10 years it would reset. Now, I've gone with several districts or worked with several districts on this, and they have gone that route of just doing a 10-year or even a 15-year with a reset provision at the end of that term. But that would require, as Kim just mentioned, a higher rate just in the assumptions, just because we don't know exactly what that would be. Now, certainly, again, the plan is to have that paid off well before that comes to fruition. But that was the essence of my primary concern, is because I'd really like to talk that over with everyone to weigh those risks and those options, because I do think that a 10-year or even a 15-year with a reset provision is going to be a significantly better rate than anything you're going to get for like a 20-year fixed. Does that make sense?
I appreciate that, Gary. I personally, from our, would prefer to waive on if we could have that special meeting, just so that there was just a process through there. That would be, not that we can't make that decision by any means, but just kind of ballot decision. That would be my preference on our side. But I appreciate that, Gary.
When are we proposing that special meeting?
Dan, what do you think the turnaround would be from the time the RFP is finalized, and you could kind of give us a summary of the bank's offers?
What day is the 3rd? Is that a Friday? Thursday. I could summarize the provisions and everything in the RFPs on Friday, and then as early as, if you guys wanted to have a meeting as early as that following Monday.
Yes, maybe early that week of the 7th.
Yeah, I can't do Monday or Wednesday, but I can do Tuesday.
Tuesday, like a quick special meeting.
And any time obviously is fine, any time of the day.
We could get a quorum.
Yes. I think Tina's on the call now as well.
Okay. Hey, Tina.
5 o'clock.
She's muted.
Yeah, she's allowed to talk if she wants to. Oh, okay. I thought you guys would enjoy the silence. Yes, I am here. What day are you talking about?
The 8th.
What time?
At this point, anytime. You're saying 5 o'clock?
Well, yeah, it doesn't matter. I mean, anytime that day works fine.
Yeah,
I would be able to get across town until about 6 p.m.
It could be a virtual meeting.
You know, we could do it virtually.
Okay, that's fine.
So Elizabeth, this is Kim. We would just need to have one person at your meeting location, like where you are right now. So if you or Susie wanted to be there, in case there was any public available, or that wanted to be attended in person, someone should just be there, but everybody else can attend via remotely.
We can set it up and have run our meeting as we typically do and record it as well.
Okay.
Gus, is there a time on Tuesday that would be better?
10 in the morning.
10? That's okay.
My afternoon is riddled with appointments up until 6:30.
Do you know what 10 on Tuesday work for you? Should I text you?
So I keep getting muted. No, I cannot make 10 on the 8th.
How do you do 6:30 now? 6:30, 6:45, and again, if it's
I'll be in
virtual,
council, but
you can step out of council.
And so as long as, we need
3 to 5.
So yeah, I mean, if we go Tuesday, I'm going to be pretty tight, but I can set up my prior to.
So maybe try the 10 o'clock.
You can't do 10 o'clock.
Oh, sorry, that's it. Sorry, what time, Gus?
Well, I mean, I would. Did Tina say what her availability is?
She's at 6:30.
If we're doing it virtually, I can be available by about 5:15, 5:30.
Yeah, because I could do 6:30 as well, but if you wanted it earlier, jump to 10 a.m.
6:30 is fine with me. I mean, again, it's virtual as long as somebody's here.
6:30 and we can be here. Does that work? Dan or Kim, does that work for you all?
That works, yes.
Yeah, it does.
Thank you.
Great. And then if you, I know you'll do this, but just, yeah, shoot us a Zoom link and we'll be able to jump on at 6:30, and I'll send you a spreadsheet summarizing everything received on the 3rd. I'll send that to you no later than Friday, the 4th.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Kim.
any other questions? My policy review. First reading of policy GBT.
Great. So thanks for your feedback the last time we met, and hope that we captured some of the recommendations or questions and concerns that were here, and the red line edits are listed there. I can tell you that in multiple different forums, this question has continued to come up. For example, what is our policy around social media and staff? And so that came up again at the forum for the high school last Wednesday. So this policy would capture that as well. And we continue to go back to saying that just because the policy doesn't mean that it just stops there. You know, more training, more opportunities to talk through certain scenarios. So there is a revision that I changed on page, sorry, I should have numbered the pages, page number 3. That's the bottom of page 2. I just captured the JICI and KFA. Just sometimes it's nice when it says the policy that they're referring to, and it's cited at the bottom as well.
Is there a heading under that? Is that social and other interactions?
Oh, yeah.
Or, sorry, because it's starting to drive the page on the start.
That's page 2, and it's under possession of deadly weapons. It's that red persons in that paragraph. So we already had those 2 policies, so just made a note of them there. I think that's what we're seeing in our policy revisions, that if it's changes someplace, it's nice to know where else it was documented so that we can know the impact. And then we struck through the general standards, and then we struck through even though, just because we, as the conversation said, it was a little bit redundant. We kept it to the conciseness. Maintained everything else as it was presented with no other revision. We did update the legal at the bottom and made sure that those revised state statutes aren't doubly mentioned, and made sure that some that need to be mentioned were there. But overall, everything stayed substantially the same besides those edits.
So question, so duty to report, which again, there's not a page number, but it's got its own heading. It's under exceptions and under numbers 1 through 9 that are in dark ink towards the end of it. Duty to report is according to policy JLF, which says you'll report to the appropriate, I think it was the county, actually the screenshot of it, the appropriate county unit or something of that nature. Appropriate county department of social services or local law enforcement. So you've got that, which makes perfect sense, and it's probably absolutely what we should be doing. But then the next one down is investigation, which looks like the investigation is done by HR staff member. But if you've got a duty report to the county, then wouldn't that be the county's job to do that? So the investigation is right underneath duty to report. It seems that that may not be consistent, and I think that actually would get us in trouble. As a mandatory, there's no page numbers on this. It'd be good to have numbers on it and letters and stuff like that if we could sometime going forward. Is this a boilerplate from CASB or no?
It is.
Because usually their stuff has numbers on it. So duty report. So let's see if I can. It's above notification concerning arrests, and it's just above disciplinary action. It's got it's underlined. So duty report, I think that's totally appropriate. And again, JLF says to the appropriate county organization or law enforcement, which I think is exactly the right thing and probably is what the law says. Yeah. And then investigation, though, looks like the investigation falls under the jurisdiction of the human resources staff member, which should be different than a county agency or law enforcement. And I think that actually, if you have duty to report and you report it to somebody in the district, and then the district does an investigation, and it never gets to the actual real people that are supposed to be reported to, that puts us at risk. So it's, I think we can ask Mr. Stanek, I guess, but I'm not exactly sure how that even got in there, because that's exactly the opposite of what we should be doing, is my understanding.
You would do the duty to report to DHS or law enforcement, and then from there, the investigation for HR would take second seat after that has happened. So, and that's where sometimes you may need to move towards administrative leave until that investigation is happening. So, yeah, we all have a duty to report. But if concerning a possible boundary violation, then that is also steps into the HR. And that's when we get advisement from legal counsel around what's next, around what's happening around that particular situation. So it's both. It's not just one or the other, it's both.
I speak because then that could contaminate the real investigation.
Yeah, we let law enforcement take the first step in whatever that might be. And then we have the HR as a secondary to it.
So should that be in there? Mm-hmm. I mean, specifically, so when all of us are gone, this is being looked at again in 20 years. That we make sure that everybody understands that law enforcement has the preeminent role as the actual legal and official investigatory body, and any district investigation is subordinate to that, and the administrative leave is a totally separate issue.
Yeah, it's totally separate. I think that duty to report when an employee observes conduct, it's like you said, it's captured in JLF. What else would you want to see there specifically?
Well, I think duty report's perfectly right. I think investigation just, it sounds like the district might be doing an investigation, potentially, you know, wouldn't be in place because JLF is reporting to the right people, but it could be parallel. And then I think parallel investigations often you potentially can contaminate things.
I think something that this investigation is in conjunction with the advisement from law enforcement and other agencies. So
after consultation with appropriate law enforcement. Yeah, just so that's clear, because we don't want to, we're not in the law enforcement.
Yeah, we don't jump over, we don't jump over it
right
here.
Or jump the shark as John. Whatever that is.
So I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah.
I'll get your notes, Kendall, from the minutes one. It's like, and then I'll make sure John reads it before the second reading.
Okay. That's all I had. That was just those points.
Tina, do you have anything to add, change, or suggest?
Hold on, sorry, I had to flip back to this message, to this screen. No, I don't think so. I think it's a very thorough policy. It doesn't leave much wiggle room for anybody to wiggle out of.
I did make a note on not the last page, second to last page, just the numbering looks like 14 and 15 shouldn't be there. It's the continuation of 14.
Oh yeah, you're right. The space is missing. Thanks. I thought I got this.
And to add, maybe Tina's point, very thorough. So hopefully we are understanding as a staff and such, not only how thorough this is, but then how we maintain relationships and we don't become a 20-page document that we're checking off, but we actually can still behave as human beings, which speaks to the prevention in the first place. So I just want to caution that we can policy ourselves out of behaving as human beings. So.
I agree with you. And I do think there's a transition in some of these aspects around what currently might be happening and folks haven't really understood or known that that might be a new expectation or new change. And how do we do that in a way that's honoring? I think a lot of the work that Cameron is working towards in terms of observable and interruptible, and that's why a lot of those, what is the our space or your space? What's the Sports U? Sorry, there's so many different. So Sports U is such a place where any parent can see and observe what the communication is. So even that can be in the social media site. But I do believe that Cameron, we even talked about this being something that can be supportive for all staff, not just athletics and activities. Right, so we'll make an added sentence under, I believe it would go under investigation. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Anything else? Policy GB. So would we then, do we need to approve that today?
We need to move to adopt or accept the first reading with recommendations to add a sentence around investigation and HR. And that will be second reading. And the other edits.
Anyone like to make a motion?
Move approval of the first reading with the edits as previously discussed.
Do you have a discussion?
Johnson?
Aye.
Bowen?
Aye.
Sharon?
Aye.
Smith?
Aye.
Vidovich?
Aye.
Hey, did you capture when Tina joined the meeting? Do you know when Tina joined?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, and then first reading of policy JLC.
This came through looking at the policies that we're looking at now, and we do need to adopt JLC. If you look at JHC, it's quite similar, and that there are some nuances. Eric can actually speak to that as well. He looked at it with the health team, and once JLC is recommended or approved and adopted, then we would retire JHC, so there's not redundancy there. Eric, do you want to speak to what you saw differently in this?
No, I mean, one of the things that we did notice, I mean, this new, the proposed new policy JLC is nothing more succinct, and it just, I just think that the language in here is more actionable, and so, and there's also an update. There was not, for instance, the dental health piece in JLC wasn't included at JHC, and we just noticed that JHC is fairly outdated as far as the time that it was last revised and even last revisited. So yeah, the health team, as we talked through this, I mean, this is practice that's happening currently, as we speak anyway, and so obviously no issues.
This is the boilerplate, and in JHC there is a reference to maintaining immunization records, but we have a separate policy for that as well. So that's why this one captures, and we can't see other districts having JHC. Neither does CASB have it at JHC.
So I had looked at JHC before you just mentioned it. So it looks like part of that talks about the district recognizes the parents have the primary responsibility for the health of their students. Is that in JLC also? Sorry, I wouldn't be flipping back and forth. So did that get taken out? And if it was taken out, was there a specific reason for taking that out?
We just went with what is in CASB's recommended policies. If we want to add that to JLC, we can definitely consider that. Which paragraph? Oh, the third paragraph.
Yes, I'm on the next one. On back on JLC now, so I can't look at them side by side.
So it says the district recognizes that parents have the primary responsibility for the health of their students. We could include that in JLC as well.
I don't think JLC seems fine. I had a question on was it talks about communicable diseases, which we've obviously got lots of experience with, sadly, over the last 2 years and 1 day. The school nurse shall report the presence of a communicable disease, but doesn't say to who. So I'd like to think that would be like the health department or somebody that knows about communicable diseases.
Yeah, we have a requirement to report these things to the health department.
So you should probably just add that in the last paragraph. It just says shall report the presence of a communicable disease, but it doesn't say to the bus driver, to the CFO, to
the appropriate agency.
So the public health department would probably make it easy because they're the people that do communicable diseases. They're the experts. That's what I'd recommend. And then maybe we don't retire JHC until we review it. I guess that'd be a different thing. So we can.
Yeah. I think if we move forward to the second reading, we could potentially, if we know that's going to move forward in second reading, then we can retire it. Review and potentially retire it the same way.
So if we're going to, in my opinion, if we're going to look at a totally new policy that's going to retire an old policy, probably having both policies side by side before the meeting would allow us to be more efficient.
Yeah, so we'll have JHC
and JLC
next meeting.
But again, the second reading of JLC is totally separate and distinct from retiring JHC. Yes. That's a whole different discussion. So that should not hold this getting a second reading.
One just quick update, you'll see more information around fentanyl and Norcan and just the increase of those fentanyl, what is it, overdose?
Overdoses, deaths.
And there are some districts that are putting in policy. We're looking at currently our SRO maintains Norcan, what is
nasal spray.
Nasal spray, thank you. in her, either on her person or in her office. So we have access to it when she's not here. We believe that we're working through this policy, or just internal policy, that somebody would have access to it. And we're trying to understand, if she's not here, can we use medication that's been prescribed to her? If we can't, then we will want to go on a pathway of making sure that we have some available to us, specifically at the middle school and the high school campuses for now. Other schools are not seeing it in elementary schools, but we wouldn't want to be waiting on a 911 call. If we can use hers, then that would be ideal. So that's not policy related, just wanted to let you know.
Who's the physician advisor for the district? I know it was Dr. Bronski last year, but.
No, I don't have the name off the top of my head, but I know we had somebody that wrote the standing order for the EpiPen. I forget exactly who it was, but
is it an ER doc or a family practice doc or a, who knows? It's somebody with budget.
Yeah, I don't know. We can get that for sure.
Yeah. They probably want to weigh in on that, I would think.
Yeah.
Since it's their license.
There was a grant recently that you could apply for this nasal spray, so that we didn't have to pay for it, but we can look into that. Just wanted to update you on that. You'll see more districts in the area having that one.
And that I like Andy in the emergency department.
Is it?
Yeah, we give it all the time.
Thank you.
So with those, so you did also recommend you did want to include paragraph 3 from JHC as well. Discuss that. Both.
I didn't have enough time to look at JHC to see if that's something we're going to totally get rid of or not. So I don't know if we need to, if we're not going to.
We can still make a change in the second reading.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
What I'll do is in the second reading, I'll add that statement where it might make sense. And if you want to remove it from the second reading, we can do that. Look at JHC together. Thanks.
All right, Tina, do you want to jump in or are you good?
No, I'm good.
Right.
So to clarify, we're gonna compare these two policies, JHC and JLC, at next meeting.
So I think we can still approve this in the first reading if we'd like today, and then the next one we can discuss both alongside one another, and then that one is 2 readings to remove.
Just one to remove.
Yeah, because my initial thoughts, just looking at the objectives and then looking at subsections. You know, we're talking about promoting good health habits and the environment, referrals and so forth of medical, psychological, and physical needs. But health records, annual screening programs, dental health, communicable diseases, but we're not addressing from a psychological or wellness standpoint. Is there anything that we want to consider there that would help bolster, you know, within policy, checking in on mental wellness? And it is more than mental, so psychological as well as physical. So I'm pondering at the moment. So if I get to ponder that at the next comparison.
Well, if we could see if Kathy has any recommendations.
Yeah, basically emotional well-being.
Yeah.
This is Cassie's. Yeah, but we could do some more, seeing if it dives in, if others have some more further expanding of specifically number 3 potentially.
Yeah, because I like the idea of putting in the policy just like with the dental, you know, and even the vision and stuff, the things that we, you know, as we go through school, these are things that are checked on. That mental and physical wellness piece would be nice, I think, to be addressed.
To that point, part of the school health professionals grants, it's looking at us having some type of screener, mental health screener, and Jane and their team is looking at that. And it's really, you have to be cognizant of what you're screening for, but that is something that is part of that grant process through the state. So we can do some dives into that work.
The children's have some resources in that too.
On that note, sorry, John, I was just gonna throw it in as Elizabeth is writing. The ACEs inventory, adult or adverse childhood experiences inventory would be one thing that I would just throw in there. It could be a general inventory on that type of screen. Yeah. Go ahead, John.
Sorry, and then just the second paragraph again, just I didn't look at it before this meeting, about the JHC, about the school adhering to the Colorado laws related to all that sort of stuff. Obviously, we do that, so to have that in there is not a problem either. So I'm not totally sure that we're going to get rid of JHC. Are all of our kids being screened for hearing and vision and all those things on top? Are they all on time for that?
Yeah, Eric can speak to that.
Yeah, okay, great.
Sorry, what?
Are all our kids being screened for vision and hearing and all the stuff that happens? They're supposed to happen based on, I think, state statute.
On an annual basis, we've got, so we have, everybody is scheduled at NSCS to happen for their screenings coming up in the next couple of weeks, actually, for before spring break. And then U-Passes will be scheduled after spring break. And our 7th and 9th graders that are required for that screening, we're almost finished the 7th grade, and they're going to transition up to 9th grade. So this should all be done before spring break as well.
Right.
Because you're right, throwing psychological in there and then not having support that.
Some sort of measure.
And really that's that referral to appropriate healthcare. And we have to be really cognizant of what we refer, because if we refer, then we have to pay for it. And so it's really, I mean, how do we interpret that and making sure that, for example, we, in an IEP, if we refer something specific to services, we're now responsible for paying for that. So it's a lot of different interpretations that impact financial resources.
And just the mental health team has done a great job too with when families reach out. We also have to be very careful that we don't refer to someone that we don't know for potential liability there too.
And we can add things. The things I'm talking about aren't even on the referral. They're not related to referrals. They're related more to checking in. So do we have, just like we say, hey, all 7th graders will check in your hearing or whatever it is, you know, to have regular check-ins and a process to do that. And that helps with normalization as well, just checking in on the well-being of everyone.
Because I'm wondering if it can be addressed, it should be addressed in a different place as well. So
yeah, that might be too.
If we take out psychological entirely from this and just say medical and physical, and then address the psychological in a different way, because it is it's systemic, it's more difficult. It's not like a vision test, right? It's a thing, but
like its own policy.
It's great.
JLCA.
Okay, so do we feel comfortable moving to adopt this on first reading, or do you want to come back to it next time? Or
if there's not a rush, it might make more sense just to kind of ruminate over a little bit, do it right rather than
I think that's substantial enough that we go back to the drawing board with a first reading.
And try to integrate those two if we're gonna, and then we can actually just phase that other one out at the same time. That probably looks cleaner.
It gives us time to bring the mental health team in partnership with our health team as well.
Good.
That's nice dialogue.
Actually, those two, when you say that out loud, so it just clicks with me. The two are hand in hand. So one leads to physiological presentation. So the two working together will certainly improve identification of trends and so forth.
And like I said, the work that with the school healthcare professionals grant, there is a mental health screener. And we are just on the tip of just identifying training for that and what that looks like. That's great.
So next up we have, we're on to board development and the annual work plan. I just had a chance to review this afternoon. Elizabeth, can you give a little context to this? Or
sure. We asked Susie just to pull budget from last year to this year for this is your budget as a Board of Education. And how monies are spent, and Susie can maybe speak to why you see some bigger expenses for like purchase services this year versus last year. So that's really just the cost for you all to be in your seats. The community.
What did we spend 48 grand, but I'm not eating a pizza.
It's a lot of, there's some election expenses in there, and then PR, we had Lisa Raylu. And so some of these expenses may move to ESSER funds once we get different ESSER things approved. So there may be some there, but it really is a lot of PR, consulting, advertising, that type of work.
Work that happened before the bond went to the ballot. So all of that work.
So would that have been true for the 21 grand that was spent in 2020, 2021 as well?
I didn't look at that one specifically. Sorry, so I don't have.
I just hate being over budget by,
it was
5,000%.
Yeah, it was known overages. But yeah, last year's, I'm not sure exactly what that is, but I can get that for you.
I mean, just like a big picture breakdown, just because again, if our budget's 5 grand and we spent 48, that'd be Ricky Ricardo. You got some explaining. So which we have to explain because this is going on our board tab. I mean,
well, and also on the election piece, since there was an election, right? I know that there was probably some expenses just because they printed names and such, even though people didn't vote.
Right, because the third person dropped out in that window period.
Or were deemed unqualified.
It was, we had like that wouldn't have changed. So that's just really what they do is they take all of the elections going forward and then take the total cost of printing the materials and all that and then divide it up among those. So you can never even actually for the election expenses estimate what it is. You just get a bill from.
And just let us know if the next meeting would be, if I have stuff, then there's not much to discuss because they don't really know right this minute. Still, but at least have some idea. So somebody asked us, I have an answer.
That's the beauty, I think, of having the work session is that for the next work session, we can set this item as a topic. Any other additional conversation on the cost of governance? Okay, let's see. Okay, updates. I just want to give you a few that the JVC will know more as I put these notes here after the March runs. We do see an increase in per pupil. As we know, we have some changes in enrollment, and so it might offset some of the actual increase to per pupil, although we're working hard for enrollment. Looking at potentially like $550 extra. We won't know more till this March runs there. Inflation calculation is at 3.5 to 3.7%. And as we know, that's not even going to be close to what actual inflation is. So I think, and Susie can talk to this as well, I think that some of the dilemmas we're seeing is that while we'll have a % increase for salaries, what we're not seeing is that it's going to be able to match or keep up with inflation and or health insurance. So it is connected to the school finance. And I don't know if there's anything else Susie can.
Is the bill still going through? And I can't remember the details of it, where it was going to allow staff in general that had retired on para to potentially come back and work and not mess with those benefits. Is that still going through, or is that?
Yeah,
okay? Because I mean, that could be helpful.
It's huge. And it's interesting, it's only teachers.
Oh, only teachers, okay.
Which we don't understand exactly because there are a lot of people who retire from para. There are professionals we need bus drivers. We are thankful, at least it's teachers. I don't think it includes special service providers either. And then a couple of other ones. The accountability clock is going to restart. Senate Bill 137. So we can predict to have school performance framework starting next fall. So from this year, we'll have SPF and district performance frameworks. And then the accountability clock will restart in 2013. So any school that was on improvement or priority improvement status will continue. So that's important to just start to kind of look at. We need to be thinking about those things. And then there's some legislation right now, and it has strong legislative support around evidence-based training in the science of reading. And this is specific to our principals, elementary principals. So Chris and Maria would need to be trained in the science of reading, which is not a bad thing for principals. It's just one more thing right now. And so, but there's probably strong support for this to move forward, just as a heads up. And that would need to be completed by 2023-24 school year. Those are the kind of big updates I think that we have for you all. Questions?
Board self-reflection. Anything that we would like to share before we head into executive session? Okay, I'm going to read.
I think I remember Gary asking if we had split these meetings into two, or we're going to double the length of our meeting. And that was not the case here. I'm just saying, that's my board self-reflection. We were not very efficient.
Noted.
Thanks for,
I pay attention.
I've been contemplating that whole thing.
I can hear it over here. I just weren't going to say it.
All right, let's see, should I make the motion? I move pursuant to Colorado Revised Statutes, Title 24, Article 6, Section 402, and subsection 4B to go into executive session to conference with the attorney for the purpose of receiving legal advice on a specific question, particular matter that is discussed behind closed doors, relates to the arrest of 2 prior educators and applicable personnel and reporting purposes. Second.
Second.
Okay.
Johnson.
Aye.
Moen.
Aye.
Sharon.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Vidovich.
Aye. Okay, and let's take a quick, maybe 5 minutes or 5 minutes.